All right, so I decided to start from this video here, fear of performing. And really performing can be anything, right? It can be speaking on stage, can be playing guitar, piano, playing in a band, singing, whatever that is. And I divided this video in two parts, as you can see here. And I would start from the right side. And the reason why I'm recording this video is that I've been talking about this for a long time now. I would say like 4 or 5 years. And I didn't know any of this myself until I did. And in my life, I played thousands of gigs and I taught hundreds of students. And through my own experience and their experience, I've been noticing that a lot of times we struggle to play on stage for a bunch of reasons, and we don't really know what those reasons are. And we often focus on the wrong side of this. And so in this video, I just want to show you what is my approach. That is just my realizations really through my own experience and the one from my students. And if that can help, I'm glad, because that's all I'm trying to do. So on this side, I would call this side skills. And I will build these live, so hopefully it's not gonna take me forever. But when it comes to skills, right, there's many skills that we can build when we study, right? Like we could build speed, for example. I'll use these here. We could build being accurate. We could build, for example, our tone, right? So I could look for, I don't know, headphones, for example, to represent that. And what else? Feel, right? What we call feel when we play, right? And for people that are watching that are improvisers, obviously there's also an important part that is, I'll take like a book, vocabulary, right? So each and every of these skills we can practice through something that is really simple. We could look for one like a weight. Yeah. All these things we can practice, if I can move this thing, through what we could call reps, repetitions, right? And each and every of these skills can be built through repetitions. Something that I want to spend a couple of minutes on is what type of repetitions, because a lot of the things that I've done in my 20s, I now realize were kind of nonsense. So I'm trying to share this to kind of save time to students if I can. And for example, reps, just for the sake of reps, so you just sit down and you play 8 hours without thinking about anything, is very inefficient, right? And when you are 20, unfortunately, you have the time, and I had the time. I was in university. I could just spend 8 hours a day doing nonsensical reps and like wasting my time, and I wasted a lot of time, unfortunately. So let's make just one example, right? Let's say you want to build speed, right? In the past, what would I do to build speed? I would just repeat a thing, for example, starting from 50% speed, and then I would go to 55% speed, and then to 60%, and so on and so forth. What I realized through the years is that every single time I was doing that, I was getting to a place, usually around 90%, 90-something%, where I just couldn't progress anymore. And that, through the years, made me think, okay, there must be a different way. I started researching more and more. And what I teach now and what I do when I practice something is I do 50 and then I do 70. Usually when you skip high like that, something is gonna break. You know, either is your right hand technique, your picking motion, your fingering, the position you're playing in, your ability to feel the rhythm is gonna break. So what do? You go back to 50 and you fix those specific points of what you're studying. Once you do that, then you can go to 60. And from 60, you jump to, for example, 80%. Obviously, you can break it down in smaller, incremental speeds steps, but just an example. So when you get to 80, something's gonna break down. You pick those little things, you go back, you restudy your picking, your fingering, the position you're playing in, and you keep doing that. Why is this more efficient? Well, are less reps, right? And there's more focus on what's breaking down. And another thing that, for example, I've noticed through the years with my students, I was doing that so much. I was always starting from the beginning, right? So every single time I would play something, I would start from, let's say, measure 1 or the note number 1, and then go to 2 and so on, right? Then I would make a mistake. What would I do? Start from, again, measure 1. Then go, mistake, back, right? And then I would go to 4. Now, if you think about it, the problem about that kind of practice is, okay, I'm playing these one time, then 2 times, mistake, 3 time, mistake, 4 time, and then 3 time, and then 2 times, right? So by the end of your practice routine, you probably played these 1,000 times and the last couple of notes 20 times, right? So that's a huge difference between these two, right? So that's another thing that I learned. So to make this short, right, there's multiple ways to practice every single skill that you're trying to build. But going forward with this is not the point of the video, is once you then at a certain point practice enough and you think, oh, I put enough reps, what do? You go and you want to play the music live, right? And what happens when you play in front of an audience? Something is gonna go wrong, most likely, because that's normal. And we need to think about this in 2 ways. One is, all right, there are some things that happen when you play live that are about the environment, right? I'm putting the sun and the wind, but that's not what I meant. It's more like you don't have your headphones, the amplifier is too loud or too quiet, the bass player is too far, there's wind and sun, it's too dark, for example, you can't see the score, you're not used to that, you can't read properly, all that kind of stuff. Every single environmental aspect, you can go back, retrace, and be like, okay, well, how do I fix I can't see the score? Well, either I memorize the song or I bring my own little light so that I can see it. The problem about that is a lot of times what I was doing a lot, and my students do that all the time, is after that, let's say we make X amount of mistakes, we go back here and we're like, the problem is I'm not fast enough because at a certain point I couldn't play a certain phrase, I'm not accurate enough, my tone is not good enough, and so on. My vocabulary is not good enough for people that they improvise, for example. And that's all good, right? And at the beginning especially, there's a number of circles of these that are necessary, right? So you keep going back and you're like, okay, you keep doing this circle, but at a certain point, you will reach a point where it doesn't get better. Doesn't matter how good you get, how fast, how accurate, how good your tone is, your feel is, your vocabulary is at home or in a protected environment, let's call it. Doesn't matter how good you are, when you get to the live stage phase, it doesn't translate, right? You get frustrated, what do? Let me spend, instead of 5 hours, 8 hours on speed. And chances are you'll get better at speed and so on, but you're not gonna get better at live performance. So there are 2 things again. One is trying to understand how about fixing some of these environmental things. So maybe I'm not used to playing live, the sound and so on. Get used to that, sure. But don't ignore what's actually making your system breaking down, and is this side of the table. And this is something that I learned later on by accident, talking with an amazing, I was in my 20s, talking with an amazing violin player that was first violin of Tokyo Philharmonic Orchestra. And we were talking about performing live and so on. And obviously I was young and I was asking a lot of questions about, I saw him on a big concert a week prior. And then I was asking questions like, I felt so natural, like so on, aren't you kind of like worried or anxious when you get on stage and so on? And he replied to me like, well, sure, there's an aspect of like being sort of like anxious, but he said more than anxiety is more like excitement. I was like, oh, okay, because I feel anxious, like straight on anxious. It's like, okay, what do you do to prepare for the show? I'm like, well, I do this, right? That's what I do. And he goes like, well, sure, but How about, I don't know, like visualizing? How about understanding why you feel anxious, right? And at that point, he suggested to me a bunch of books that I started reading. And the way I was performing really changed through the years. And I started teaching that to all my students. So just want to share it here as well. So when you get on stage, these factors are, I would say, probably, and I'm being generous, 50% of what's happening, right? The other 50% is your response to what's happening. And don't forget that all these things are happening inside your brain. So if your brain is not functioning correctly, if you have anxiety, it can't possibly pull a very fast phrase, out of nowhere, because you're busy. Your brain is like a machine, as a computer is busy processing other stuff, right? So let's take a look at that. So first of all, like one of the things that I see most commonly, and I wrote everything there before the video, so I have it in my whiteboard there, is what happens if I bomb, right? What happens if I bomb? Like, I have one student yesterday, he's gonna have a big concert coming. He was stuck into that. Like, what happens if I bomb? Like, what happens if I miss this note here? I can't improvise on this thing, and so on. And that was causing so much anxiety, right? This thing here is what we could call importance. And we call it illusion. This one I'm stealing from my own coach. He calls that illusion because it is an illusion, right? And a lot of times, guys, when I say this, a lot of people think, well, it is important because it's a super important concert, right? Now, I'm not saying it's not important, right? But the way you're building it in your head is not helping you performing better. So as when you look at interviews from big athletes and so on, what is the goal? The goal is for you to perform the best way possible. If something that you're telling yourself in your head is not helping that means it's not bringing you to the goal that you want, right? So I would rather think and feel something else that brings me back to having an amazing experience. Because the problem about this is I've done this so much, that's why I'm very passionate about it. You get on stage and you feel extremely anxious, but you push through, right? And somehow, somewhat, you make it. You make it 1 time, 2 times, 100 times. I made it 100 times, right? The problem is I associated the experience of playing live with deep anxiety moments. So after a while, I thought, why am I doing this in the first place? I don't want to do it, right? So that's when I stopped for a while, literally playing live. I was like, I don't want to play live, right? Because it's just a bad experience. Maybe just not for me. But by talking with this violin player and then multiple people, I realized I'm just living the experience in the wrong way. And what I'm telling to myself in that moment is this concert is so important. Is the most important concert of my life. If I bomb, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose my strike. No one is gonna want me, I don't know, playing in front of them anymore. I'm not gonna be able to book other gigs and stuff like that. All those voices are not true, right? Because trust me, and talk with any musician that has played thousands of gigs in life, you perceive in the moment this is the most important one, but do you have another one coming, right? And even if you bomb 10 in a row and then you study and you get better and better and better and you go back and play and you're the best musician in the world, you will make it, right? So that voice that tells you what happens if I bomb is very deep and nothing has to do, unfortunately, with music, right? Because this is what I learned as well. What happens if I bomb, right? How would you feel? You would feel shame. You will feel probably not respected, probably not loved, right? Embarrassed, and so on, right? Sorry about the spelling here. Now, all these feelings, they come from a place that nothing has to do with all of this. These come from probably one time in your life you played and you bombed, and some friend or a family member, you looked at them and they were embarrassed, and you felt, maybe I should be embarrassed, right? And that created this cycle of you every single time. What happens if I bump? I just will live under a bridge, no home, no house. You exaggerate in your head, right? Imagine getting on stage with all of that in your subconscious. The level of pressure for your brain is like, bro, if you fail this, it's the end of it. We're gonna die, basically, right? So imagine that. So that's the first thing that we call importance. The second one is what I call finish line, right? That is very close to the one above, slightly different though. That is, you feel that that concert is your finish line. Like, oh, the level where I'm at right now, if I play at a certain level, I made it, right? This is the end of it. And you forget that the whole point of this is repetitions, is getting better and better, right? You're telling your brain, or your brain is telling you, whichever way you want to see it, that this is the last line. If I make it here, someone is going to sign me. They're going to give me millions of dollars to play the guitar or whichever instrument. They're going to sign me with a label. It's over. So I just need to do it now. Do it now, right? Imagine that, right? Imagine with anything else, someone that is telling you, you gotta shoot. You're not a basketball player. Shoot this thing, and just you need to do it now. 5, 4, 3. And you're like, I don't know how to do it, right? That's what you're doing to your brain in that specific time. And the other one that will bring us to the final part of this video is self-worth, right? A lot of us, unfortunately, growing up, I've done that so much. We start thinking something that is very detrimental to all this, that is, I am a musician. I am a singer. I am an artist. And at the beginning, it's an healthy one, because you're like, more than I am, you tell yourself, I want to be a musician, right? But through time, it becomes, I am a singer. I am an artist. I am a musician. So it gets to the point where if you're not that, who are you, right? That's very, very dangerous, because you're telling your system, if I bomb this concert, if I don't perform well enough, I am nothing. My self-identity, my self-worth is connected to how I perform on stage, right? Now, again, here I have, especially professional that I teach, sometimes they tell me, well, but that's actually what I do. I make a living out of this, right? And again, my response to that is that I understand that that's the truth, but how is that truth that you have in your head helping you playing better on stage, right? They came in with a problem of, I feel anxious, I can't perform, this is too much for me. And my answer to that is, how about changing the way you feel through the way you see this performance or this concert, this series of whatever lessons that you're doing. So it's exactly the same thing, like starting to understand and to see, like, wait, I am a musician when I'm stepping on stage, right? But I am many other things. And my performance, this to me was life-changing. My performance is, in fact, an outcome. Sorry for my handwriting, it's kind of terrible here in general. But outcome is what I'm focusing on here. But I cannot attach this to this. Right? Why? Because I can have a day, I can make a mistake, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm working on it. This is what you need to focus on, right? So this thing, self-worth, is about finding that you are not your performances, you're not your mistakes, you're not one concert that goes wrong, one studio session that goes wrong, one song that you put out and doesn't have millions of views, but it's the amounts of reps you put in. That's what counts. The accuracy, obviously, not just reps for reps, but the what you're putting into. You're waking up in the morning and putting energy into this. That's you. you is not one performance, one concert, one song they put out and doesn't get as many clicks as you want it, right? Now, circling back and ending this video, self-worth is just one part of it. The other part of it that is very important is, and I'll put it on this side, self-efficacy. These two need to be built, guys. It's not something that happens magically in your brain. You need to relentlessly think about this stuff so that really penetrates your subconscious and then you feel better in the moment. Self-efficacy, in a few words, means your ability to repeat success over and over again. This is built while you're practicing because you really need to feel it. When you play and perform a thing right, think about it. Be like, yes, I made it. I can do it. I try again 2 times, 3 times, 4, 5. You're like, yes, I can do it. I can do it, right? And self-worth is about you in those moments, tough moments. Think about, is this true? Am I my performance? Is this so important? Is this my last one? No. So I can relax and go back to this feeling, self-efficacy. So this is my first video introduction about this. Obviously, each and every of these, they have different things we can talk about, each and every, and I have a plan to do so. But this is just an introduction. So if you guys like it, please comment, and like if you want to ask questions, if you want me to talk about something else, feel free to reach out. This is my first experiment, so hopefully I share something that was helpful for you guys. Thank you.